Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 16 defenses to stream for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into 5 different defenses that I believe you guys should be looking to pick up off the waiver wire right now based upon their matchups for week number 16. But before we could get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at Notorious FNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 16 defenses to stream. We begin with my number 1 defensive stream on the week, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the New York Giants this week at home in Philadelphia. The Eagles defense is currently being rostered in 20.8% of leagues on NFL.com. If you play on ESPN, CBS, Yahoo, any other fantasy football platform, then the roster percentage is going to be slightly different for the Eagles defense, as well as every defense that I discuss in today's video. So the Philadelphia Eagles have yet to play in week number 15 up against the Washington football team because the game was delayed onto Tuesday. So we're going to have to look all the way back to week number 13 for the Eagles defensive stats, because they were on bye in week number 14. So the Eagles defense in week number 13 went up against the New York Jets. In that game, they had 2 sacks, 1 interception, and 18 points allowed. Last week, the Dallas Cowboys went up against the New York Football Giants in New York. In that game, they had 1 sack. They had not 1, not 2, but 3 interceptions in that game, 1 fumble recovery, and 6 points allowed. Whether it's going to be Daniel Jones, Mike Glennon, or Jake Fromm, I frankly don't give a shit, because the New York Football Giants offense is putrid. It is terrible. They can't get anything going. I honestly think their best bet, if it is Mike Glennon or Jake Fromm this week, even if Jake Fromm does not know the playbook, he is probably a better bet to play quarterback on the team, because Mike Glennon looks like he has no idea what is happening. Now, I understand that the Dallas Cowboys defense on paper is better than the Philadelphia Eagles defense, but again, when you're looking at these defenses to stream every single week, you don't really necessarily put too much weight into the actual defense. What you're putting the weight into is the opponent that they're playing up against, and the New York Football Giants offense just frankly fucking sucks ass. It is so bad, and I believe that the Philadelphia Eagles will have no issue at all shutting this offense down. I would be surprised if the Giants were able to score more than 10 points in this game, so I love the Philadelphia Eagles this week up against the Giants. My next defensive stream here is the LA Chargers going up against the Houston Texans this week in Houston. Right now, the Chargers defense is currently being rostered in 19% of leagues. Last week up against the Kansas City Chiefs in what was one of the best games of the week, the LA Chargers end up losing, but it was a very fun game to watch. On defense, they had 1 sack, 1 INT, 1 fumble recovery, and 34 points allowed up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Big difference between going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, though, and going up against the Houston Texans, even if they are going to be without Joey Bosa this week. Even without Joey Bosa, I think the LA Chargers should really have no issue shutting down a not-so-hot offense in the Houston Texans. The Jacksonville Jaguars defense didn't play amazing in that game up against the Texans last week. 1 sack, 1 INT, and 30 points allowed, but there's also a big difference between the Jaguars defense and the LA Chargers defense. I don't believe that Davis Mills is really all that much of a scare for the Chargers defense. Again, even without Joey Bosa in this matchup, I think that the LA Chargers will be just fine, so I would love to stream the LA Chargers defense this week up against the Houston Texans. Next up, we move to the San Francisco 49ers going up against the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee. Right now, the 49ers defense is currently being rostered in 63.4% of leagues. The 49ers defense went toe-to-toe up against the Atlanta Falcons last week, and that could be described as a complete and utter clowning, because Matt Ryan couldn't do much in that game. It was 3 sacks from the Niners defense, 1 fumble recovery, and 13 points allowed. The 49ers defense has really kind of hit their stride as of recently and has played very consistent as a unit. The Pittsburgh Steelers went up against the Titans, and the Pittsburgh Steelers defense really hasn't been all that great this year, but up against the Titans, they had 4 sacks, 1 INT, not 1, not 2, but 3 fumble recoveries in that game, and 13 points allowed. The Tennessee Titans offense has been pretty limp dick without Derrick Henry. Now, if they get A.J. Brown this week, would I be slightly more nervous about starting the San Francisco 49ers defense? Of course. because seems like Julio Jones just has an addiction to being inside of the fucking blue tent on the side of the field. He's just always in there. So if A.J. Brown is able to return in this game, I will be slightly more worried. But at the end of the day, Ryan Tannehill hasn't looked great. This offense hasn't looked very good without Derrick Henry, like I said a couple of seconds ago. So I'm definitely very confident in the San Francisco 49ers defense to get it done. This is basically the classic case of a offense that is kind of on a downward spiral. The offense is not playing well, and the defense in the 49ers are doing the exact opposite. They are on a upward path towards greatness. So I think this is going to be a very good game for the San Francisco 49ers defense. Thus why I want you guys to be streaming them on the week. But before we could pivot into the next defense to stream, I would like to ask if you guys have ended up enjoying thus far, to please make sure to hit that like button down below, as well as hit that subscribe button. I would appreciate it a ton. Thank you guys all so much. So the next defense to discuss is the Seattle Seahawks going up against the Chicago Bears. Right now, the Seahawks defense is being rostered in 28.3% of leagues. Now, the Seattle Seahawks play tomorrow up against the LA Rams, so we're going to have to go ahead and look towards week 14 for the defensive stats. In that game, they went up against the Houston Texans. In Houston, they had 2 sacks, 13 points allowed in that game. Now, when we want to go ahead and look at the offense that played up against the Bears last week, we can't actually do that yet because they play the Minnesota Vikings tonight. So we're going to go ahead and pivot back to week number 14 for them as well. In that game, they went up against the Green Bay Packers, and let's just say the Packers defense had a fucking field day. 2 sacks, 2 INTs, 1 fumble recovery, 1 touchdown, and 30 points allowed. Now, I understand that 30 points allowed is far from what you're looking for in a defense, but when you get 2 sacks, 2 interceptions, a fumble recovery, and you score a fucking touchdown on defense, then everything is kind of negated, the 30 points. So, at the end of the day, the Packers defense is definitely better than the Seattle Seahawks defense, but the Seattle Seahawks defense has also looked a little bit better as of recently. I think streaming a defense up against the Bears with Matt Nagy's dumbass is certainly something that I would advise for. Again, the Seattle Seahawks defense, they're not in the same range as the other 3 defenses that I have discussed, but they are a defense that I certainly think if you're kind of looking down there in the deep depths, some of these other defenses aren't available, that you could certainly look for the Seattle Seahawks. If you guys have any questions about these defenses, maybe none of these defenses are available, and you're looking at other defenses, make sure to ask me down below in the comment section. There's also a solid chance that if you are in a smaller league, or maybe a league where some people in your league don't just hold 2 defenses, then better defenses than the ones I discuss are available, so we can talk about that down below in the comment section. My final defense to stream for week number 16 is the Miami Dolphins going up against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans. Right now, the Dolphins defense is currently being rostered in 68.7% of leagues, 0.3% off of being very nice with 69. So the Dolphins defense went up against the Jets last week. They had 6 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, and 18 points allowed. If I'm being honest with you, I was shocked that the Jets were able to perform that good up against the Dolphins defense, but at the same time, the Dolphins ultimately came through with the W, which is what I wanted as a Dolphins fan. This week up against the New Orleans Saints is going to be very interesting because of how the Saints played last night up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs defense had 2 sacks and 9 points allowed, and they lost that game because they didn't score a single point on offense. The Saints ultimately win that game. Now we got the Dolphins versus the Saints in prime time. The Dolphins defense has been so good over this last 6-game stretch where the Dolphins have been on this win streak. And I believe going up against Taysom Hill is going to be a tough task for the defense to stop Taysom Hill. Do I think that they'll be able to stop the pass catchers of guys the names of Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway, those kind of guys? Yes, but I do worry about them being able to run the ball pretty effectively up against the Dolphins defense, so that is why they're ranked as the 5th best defense on the week. I think they will be able to easily shut down the passing attack, but I worry about Alvin Kamara as well as Taysom Hill getting a little bit loose in this game and having a good rushing game, which will obviously hurt the Dolphins defense. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying today's video, please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. If you did end up enjoying, it would help me out a ton. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day, and have fun watching the games tonight because we got 2 games on double Monday Night Football. I love you guys so much. Have a great rest of your guys' day. As always, goodbye.